Ladies and gentlemen, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in our charge. Too often, people assume that leadership comes with a title or position, but true leadership is about behavior, about responsibility, and about creating an environment where people feel safe, valued, and inspired to give their best. Imagine walking into a workplace where fear dominates, where people are afraid to speak up, where mistakes are punished rather than learned from. That's not leadership, that's authority. And there's a big difference. Leaders don't demand loyalty, they earn it. They don't seek power, they build trust. The greatest leaders throughout history, the ones we admire and respect, all understood one fundamental truth. Leadership is a privilege. It is not about how much authority you have, but how much service you provide. The best leaders are those who recognize that their primary job is to create an environment where their people can thrive. Consider a captain navigating a ship through a storm. A poor leader will panic, blame the crew, or try to steer the ship alone. A great leader, however, will trust their team, inspire confidence, and ensure that every member knows their role. Leadership is about making sure that everyone on board believes they have a purpose, that their contribution matters, and that they are safe under your guidance. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make is assuming they need to have all the answers. Leadership is not about knowing everything. It's about creating a culture of curiosity and collaboration. The best leaders ask questions instead of giving orders. They encourage innovation rather than enforcing routine. They recognize that the most powerful phrase in leadership isn't "do as I say," but "what do you think?" When people feel heard, they feel valued. When they feel valued, they give their best. When they give their best, the entire team succeeds. That's why great leaders listen more than they speak. They don't lead with ego, they lead with empathy. Think about a workplace where employees hesitate to share their ideas, afraid they'll be dismissed or ridiculed. Now think about a workplace where ideas are welcomed, where even the quietest voice is encouraged. Which one will innovate? Which one will thrive? The answer is obvious. Leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about making sure the smartest ideas rise to the surface. Trust is the foundation of leadership. Without trust, there is no loyalty. Without loyalty, there is no commitment. And without commitment, there is no success. Leaders who micromanage, who demand results without support, who rule with fear instead of trust, they create environments of short-term compliance but long-term failure. People don't stay in places where they feel unsafe. The best leaders build trust by demonstrating consistency, honesty, and vulnerability. They don't pretend to be perfect, they admit when they're wrong. They don't hide their struggles, they share them. Because when leaders are authentic, they give others permission to be authentic too. There's a reason why some companies, teams, and organizations create cultures where people want to stay, while others experience constant turnover. The difference is leadership. In companies where people feel valued, where they feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves, where they know that their leaders have their backs, they don't just work harder, they work with passion. People don't follow leaders because they have to, they follow because they want to. They follow because they believe in the mission, because they trust the person leading them, and because they know that leadership is not about taking credit, but about giving it. Great leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. They mentor, they uplift, and they invest in the growth of others. They understand that their job is not to be the hero, but to build a team of heroes. The question every leader must ask is simple. Are you creating an environment where people feel safe, trusted, and inspired? If the answer is no, leadership is not being exercised, it's merely a position being held. Leadership is not a destination, it's a journey. And the best leaders are the ones who understand that every day is an opportunity to serve, to grow, and to make a difference. True leadership isn't about titles or power, it's about creating an environment where people feel safe, valued, and inspired to contribute their best. Leadership isn't about having all the answers, but fostering curiosity, collaboration, and innovation by asking the right questions and valuing input from others. Without trust, there's no loyalty or commitment. Leaders who are consistent, honest, and vulnerable build lasting trust with their teams. The best leaders mentor, uplift, and invest in the growth of others, ensuring that leadership extends beyond just one person. True leaders understand that leadership is a continuous journey of serving, growing, and making a difference every single day. Leadership is about trust, not authority. Too often, people assume that leadership is about holding a position of power, making decisions, and having others follow orders. But real leadership is not about forcing compliance. It's about earning commitment. It's about creating an environment where people choose to follow because they believe in the leader, not because they fear consequences. Trust is the foundation of any strong leadership. Without it, no matter how intelligent, experienced, or charismatic a leader may be, they will struggle to inspire loyalty and long-term success. People don't give their best effort to someone they don't trust. They may comply, but they won't be engaged. They may follow directions, but they won't take initiative. And when people don't feel trusted or valued, they will eventually leave, either physically by walking away from the job or emotionally by disengaging from their work. A leader's ability to build trust starts with consistency. When leaders say one thing but do another, trust erodes. People watch closely not just what a leader says, but how they act in difficult situations. Do they take responsibility when things go wrong, or do they shift the blame? Do they recognize and appreciate the contributions of their team, or do they take all the credit? Trust is built when leaders demonstrate integrity over time, showing that their words and actions align. Honesty is another key factor. Leaders who hide the truth, sugarcoat reality, or manipulate information lose credibility. People respect leaders who tell the truth, even when the news is tough. When leaders are open about challenges, admit their mistakes, and communicate with transparency, they create a culture where people feel safe to do the same. This openness strengthens relationships, fosters collaboration, and eliminates the fear of failure. Trust is also built through vulnerability. Many leaders believe that showing weakness makes them less effective, but the opposite is true. When leaders are willing to say, "I don't have all the answers," or "I made a mistake," it humanizes them. It makes them relatable and encourages others to be honest as well. In a culture of trust, people aren't afraid to speak up, share ideas, or admit when they need help because they know they won't be judged or punished. Another essential part of trust-based leadership is putting people first. Leaders who genuinely care about their team members, not just as employees, but as human beings, create an environment where people feel valued. When a leader takes the time to ask, "How are you doing?" and genuinely listens to the answer, it builds connection. When leaders support their people during difficult times, whether personally or professionally, it fosters loyalty. When employees know their leader cares about their well-being, they are far more likely to invest their energy and dedication into their work. A workplace built on trust is one where people feel safe to take risks, share new ideas, and challenge the status quo. When trust exists, employees don't fear failure, they see it as part of growth. They know their leader has their back, and because of that, they are willing to go the extra mile. Trust empowers people to act with confidence, knowing they won't be blamed if things don't go perfectly. This creates a culture of innovation where teams push boundaries and explore new possibilities without fear of retribution. Trust-based leadership also means giving people autonomy. Leaders who micromanage send a clear message: "I don't trust you to do this on your own." This stifles creativity and motivation. The best leaders delegate responsibility and allow their teams to take ownership of their work. They provide guidance and support, but trust their people to make decisions and solve problems. When employees feel empowered, they rise to the challenge, proving that they are capable and competent. Another key aspect of trust is fairness. Leaders who play favorites, make inconsistent decisions, or treat people unfairly destroy trust within their teams. People need to know that they will be treated with respect and fairness, regardless of their position or relationship with leadership. Consistent standards, clear expectations, and unbiased decision-making create an environment where trust can flourish. Trust is not something that can be demanded, it must be earned. It takes time, effort, and a commitment to doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Leaders who focus solely on authority may achieve short-term compliance, but they will never inspire long-term loyalty. On the other hand, leaders who prioritize trust create a culture where people feel valued, motivated, and empowered to contribute their best. Leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about creating an environment where ideas can flourish, where curiosity is encouraged, and where the best solutions emerge not from a single person, but from the collective intelligence of the team. Too often, leaders believe that their role is to provide direction and make decisions in isolation. They assume that speaking with authority is what earns respect, but in reality, the strongest leaders are not the ones who talk the most. They are the ones who listen the best. Listening is one of the most underrated leadership skills. It's easy to assume that leadership is about being the loudest voice in the room, about having the final say, about making sure that everyone follows a specific vision. But the best leaders understand that true influence comes from making people feel heard. When people feel that their voices matter, they are more engaged, more innovative, and more willing to contribute their best ideas. When leaders listen, they create a culture of trust and respect. Employees in an environment where their ideas and concerns are valued will naturally take more ownership of their work. They will be more likely to speak up when they see a problem, to share ideas that could improve their organization, and to collaborate openly with others. On the other hand, when leaders dismiss input, interrupt conversations, or assume they already know best, they stifle creativity and discourage engagement. People begin to withdraw, keeping their ideas to themselves, and the organization as a whole suffers. Listening is not just about being quiet while someone else speaks. It is an active process that requires full attention, genuine curiosity, and a willingness to be changed by what is heard. Too often, leaders listen only to respond rather than to understand. They wait for their turn to speak, formulating their reply rather than absorbing the perspective being shared. But real listening means setting aside assumptions, putting ego aside, and being fully present. It means asking questions like, "Can you tell me more?" or "What do you think we should do?" and truly considering the response. One of the greatest benefits of a leader who listens is that it encourages diverse perspectives. In any organization, people come from different backgrounds, experiences, and ways of thinking. The best solutions are often hidden in the minds of those who are not always the loudest in the room. Leaders who make an intentional effort to seek out different voices, especially those who may hesitate to speak up, unlock potential that would otherwise go unnoticed. They create an inclusive environment where everyone, regardless of position, feels they have something valuable to contribute. Listening also strengthens relationships. When leaders genuinely listen, they show that they care, not just about the work being done, but about the people doing it. They recognize that employees are not just workers fulfilling a role, they are individuals with unique challenges, goals, and ideas. A leader who listens to personal concerns, career aspirations, and even frustrations builds loyalty and trust. People naturally want to work harder for someone who values them as individuals. A leader's ability to listen can also turn potential conflicts into opportunities for growth. Disagreements in any team are inevitable, but how they are handled makes all the difference. Leaders who shut down opposition or react defensively to criticism create resentment and division. But leaders who listen, who ask, "Help me understand where you're coming from," turn conflict into dialogue. They demonstrate that differing opinions are not threats, but opportunities to refine ideas, strengthen the team, and make better decisions. Listening is also one of the most effective ways to inspire problem solving and innovation. When employees feel heard, they are more likely to take initiative. Instead of waiting for direction, they seek solutions on their own. Instead of fearing failure, they are willing to experiment and take risks. Leaders who ask, "What do you think we should do?" empower their teams to think critically and contribute meaningfully. They create a culture where people are not afraid to challenge assumptions and push boundaries. One of the simplest but most powerful ways to lead through listening is to recognize contributions publicly. When leaders take the time to acknowledge a great idea and give credit where it's due, it reinforces the value of listening. Employees see that their input matters and they become even more engaged. Something as simple as, "That's a great point and I appreciate you bringing that up," can have a profound impact on morale and motivation. In the end, leaders who listen create workplaces where people feel valued, where ideas flow freely, and where the best decisions are made collectively rather than dictated from the top. The strongest leaders are not the ones with all the answers, but the ones who know how to ask the right questions and truly hear the responses. Trust is the foundation of strong leadership. Without trust, there is no loyalty, no commitment, and no true teamwork. A leader can have the best strategy, the most innovative ideas, and the clearest vision, but if people do not trust them, none of it will matter. Trust is not something that can be demanded or enforced. It must be earned over time through actions, consistency, and integrity. People do not trust leaders simply because of their position or title. Trust is built when leaders show that they are reliable, fair, and genuinely invested in the well-being of their team. It is built when leaders do what they say they will do, follow through on their promises, and remain consistent in their decisions and values. When a leader's words and actions align over time, trust grows naturally. However, the moment there is a gap between what is said and what is done, trust begins to erode. Honesty is a critical component of trust. Leaders who are open and transparent about challenges, setbacks, and difficult decisions create an environment where people feel safe. No one expects leaders to have all the answers, but they do expect them to tell the truth. When leaders withhold information, hide mistakes, or manipulate facts, they send a message that trust is not a priority. In contrast, when leaders admit when they are wrong, share both good and bad news openly, and involve their teams in problem solving, they foster a culture where trust thrives. Vulnerability is another key factor in building trust. Many leaders believe that they must always appear strong, confident, and in control. While confidence is important, pretending to be invulnerable creates distance between leaders and their teams. People trust leaders who are authentic, who acknowledge their struggles, and who are willing to say, "I don't know," or "I made a mistake." This kind of honesty makes leaders more relatable and encourages others to be open as well. When people see that their leader is human, they feel safe to be human too. Trust is also built through fairness. Leaders who play favorites, make inconsistent decisions, or treat people unequally destroy trust quickly. When employees feel that they are not being treated fairly, resentment grows and engagement declines. A leader's job is to ensure that every team member feels valued, respected, and given the same opportunities to contribute. Fairness does not mean treating everyone the same. It means treating everyone with respect and according to their needs and contributions. A leader's ability to listen also plays a significant role in building trust. When people feel heard, they feel valued. Leaders who take the time to listen, really listen to their teams, create stronger relationships and deeper trust. This means not just hearing words, but understanding concerns, ideas, and emotions. It means creating space for open dialogue, encouraging honest feedback, and showing that input is taken seriously. Leaders who dismiss opinions, interrupt conversations, or only pretend to listen quickly lose credibility. But those who listen with curiosity and respect create a foundation of trust that strengthens the entire organization. Trust is also strengthened when leaders show that they genuinely care about their people. Leadership is not just about achieving business goals. It is about taking care of those who help achieve them. When employees feel that their leader truly cares about their growth, well-being, and success, they become more invested in their work and more committed to the team. Simple acts like checking in on someone who is struggling, offering support during tough times, or recognizing individual contributions make a huge difference. A culture of trust allows for greater collaboration and innovation. When people trust their leader and their team, they are more willing to share ideas, take risks, and challenge the status quo. They feel safe to experiment, knowing that failure will not be met with punishment, but with support and learning. Organizations that operate in a high trust environment move faster, adapt better to change, and produce higher quality work because people are not holding back out of fear. Trust also creates resilience. In times of crisis or uncertainty, teams that have a strong foundation of trust are able to stay focused and work together effectively. When employees trust their leader, they remain engaged and committed even in difficult times. They don't waste energy worrying about hidden agendas or second-guessing decisions because they believe that their leader has their best interests at heart. On the other hand, in low-trust environments, uncertainty leads to fear, disengagement, and conflict, making it much harder to navigate challenges successfully. Perhaps the most important thing to remember about trust is that it is fragile. It takes time to build, but it can be destroyed in an instant. A single broken promise, a single act of dishonesty, or a single moment of unfair treatment can undo months or years of trust building. That is why great leaders prioritize trust in everything they do. They understand that trust is not just a nice to have. It is the foundation of a strong, successful, and united team. Leadership is not about creating followers. It is about creating more leaders. Too often, leadership is misunderstood as a position of authority where one person makes decisions, gives orders, and expects compliance. But true leadership is about empowering others, developing their potential, and creating an environment where leadership is shared, not hoarded. The best leaders do not seek to be the most powerful person in the room. They seek to build others up so that leadership extends beyond just one individual. A leader's legacy is not measured by how many people follow them, but by how many people they have helped grow into leaders themselves. Organizations that depend on a single leader for direction, motivation, and problem solving will always be limited. When leadership is concentrated in just one person, progress slows and people become dependent rather than proactive. However, when leaders invest in developing others, they create teams that are adaptable, resilient, and capable of thriving even in the leader's absence. The first step in creating more leaders is recognizing potential. Many people do not see themselves as leaders because they associate leadership with authority, titles, or seniority. But leadership is not about a job title. It is about taking responsibility and inspiring others. Great leaders see the leadership qualities in others even before those individuals recognize it in themselves. They look for people who take initiative, who care about the team's success, and who are willing to step outside their comfort zones. Then, instead of keeping those individuals in supporting roles, they encourage and challenge them to lead. Encouraging leadership in others requires trust. People cannot develop as leaders if they are not given opportunities to take ownership of decisions, responsibilities, and challenges. Many leaders struggle to let go of control because they fear mistakes or inefficiency. But leadership is not about perfection, it is about growth. The best way to develop leaders is to let them try, let them make mistakes, and let them learn from experience. When leaders micromanage, they send the message that they do not trust their team. But when they delegate responsibility and empower others to lead, they create an environment where confidence and capability grow. One of the most important ways to develop future leaders is by setting an example. People do not learn leadership from instructions, they learn it from observation. If a leader is controlling, dishonest, or self-serving, those who follow them will adopt those same behaviors. But if a leader demonstrates integrity, empathy, and a commitment to serving others, those qualities will be reflected in the next generation of leaders. Leadership is not just taught, it is modeled. Feedback and mentorship are also critical in developing leaders. People grow when they are challenged, when they receive constructive feedback, and when they have a mentor who believes in them. Great leaders take the time to guide others, to help them understand their strengths, and to push them toward new opportunities. They provide honest but supportive feedback, helping future leaders improve and refine their skills. They do not just point out weaknesses, they help people turn those weaknesses into strengths. Creating more leaders also requires creating an environment where leadership is encouraged at every level. In many organizations, leadership is seen as something reserved for those in high-ranking positions. But the best organizations recognize that leadership is not about hierarchy, it is about mindset. Leadership can come from anyone at any level, in any role. A junior team member who takes the initiative to solve a problem is demonstrating leadership. An employee who supports and uplifts their colleagues is demonstrating leadership. A person who takes responsibility for their own growth and development is demonstrating leadership. The best leaders make sure that leadership is a shared responsibility, not just a title. Another key to developing leaders is teaching them to focus on service rather than status. Leadership is not about personal success, it is about lifting others up. A leader's job is not to seek power, but to empower. The best leaders ask, how can I help others succeed, rather than how can I succeed? This mindset shift creates a ripple effect where leadership is not about climbing a ladder, but about strengthening the entire organization. When people understand that leadership is about responsibility rather than privilege, they embrace it in a way that benefits everyone. Leadership development also requires patience. Growth takes time, and new leaders will make mistakes. It is easy to step in and take over when things go wrong, but great leaders understand that mistakes are part of the learning process. They allow people to struggle, to figure things out, and to develop their own leadership style. They do not expect perfection, they expect progress. By giving people the space to learn through experience, they create leaders who are capable, confident, and ready to take on greater responsibilities. The ultimate test of leadership is what happens when a leader steps away. If everything falls apart in their absence, then leadership was never truly established. It was just control. But if the team continues to function, to thrive, and to grow, that is a sign that leadership was shared and passed down effectively. The best leaders are the ones who create other leaders, ensuring that the organization, the mission, and the vision continue beyond their own time in leadership. Leadership is not a position, it is a daily practice. Many people assume that leadership is something that happens when you reach a certain level of authority or when you are given a formal title. But leadership is not about rank or status. It is about action. It is about the choices made every day, in small moments as well as big ones, that define whether someone is truly leading. Leadership is not a destination. It is a continuous journey of growth, service, and responsibility. Every day, leaders have the opportunity to influence those around them. They can choose to inspire or discourage, to build trust or create doubt, to support others or focus only on themselves. Leadership is in the way someone responds to challenges, the way they handle conflict, the way they communicate, and the way they make decisions. It is not reserved for meetings, strategic planning sessions, or public speeches. It is in the day-to-day interactions, in the way a leader listens, in the way they acknowledge and appreciate others, and in the way they set an example. A leader's true character is revealed in the small, unnoticed moments. It is easy to make a great impression in front of an audience or in a high-profile situation, but leadership is demonstrated when no one is watching. When a leader takes the time to mentor someone who is struggling, when they make the right decision even when it is difficult, when they admit mistakes instead of covering them up. It is in the consistency of these actions that real leadership is shown. One of the greatest challenges of leadership is that it requires constant self-awareness. A leader must always be evaluating their own actions, attitudes, and impact. Are they creating an environment where people feel safe to speak up? Are they setting the right example in how they handle pressure and setbacks? Are they treating people with the respect and fairness they expect from others? Leadership is not something that is mastered once and then left alone. It requires ongoing reflection and growth. A leader must also be willing to do the work they expect from others. People do not follow leaders because of their title. They follow because they respect them, and respect is earned when a leader is willing to step in, to support the team, to work just as hard as everyone else. Leaders who see themselves as above the work, who give orders but never contribute, quickly lose credibility. But leaders who are present, who are engaged, who show that they are part of the team, earn the trust and loyalty of those around them. Leadership also requires resilience. Every day presents new challenges, some expected, some unpredictable. A leader's ability to stay steady, to keep moving forward even in difficult moments, sets the tone for the entire team. When leaders panic, people lose confidence. When leaders shut down in frustration, others feel discouraged. But when leaders stay calm, focused, and adaptable, they give their teams the confidence to navigate difficulties. Leadership is not about avoiding problems. It is about facing them head-on and showing others how to do the same. The best leaders also understand that leadership is about service. It is not about personal success or recognition. It is about helping others succeed. Every day, leaders have the chance to make a difference in someone's career, to provide guidance, to remove obstacles, to create opportunities. This does not mean doing everything for people. It means supporting and empowering them to grow. A leader's success is measured not by how much they achieve individually, but by how much they help others achieve. Leadership is also about consistency. People trust leaders who are predictable in their values, their decisions, and their treatment of others. A leader who is supportive one day but dismissive the next creates confusion and uncertainty. When people do not know what to expect from a leader, they hold back, unsure of whether they will be heard or valued. But when a leader is steady, when their actions align with their words day after day, people feel secure and motivated to give their best. Another crucial part of leadership is the willingness to keep learning. No leader has all the answers. The moment a leader believes they have nothing left to learn is the moment they stop growing. The best leaders are always seeking knowledge, asking for feedback, and challenging themselves to improve. They read, they listen, they engage with new perspectives, and they adapt to changing circumstances. Leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room. It is about being open to learning from everyone around them. Ultimately, leadership is a commitment that must be renewed every day. It is not something that is turned on for big moments and turned off in the small ones. It is a way of thinking, a way of acting, a way of being that influences everyone around them. It is a daily practice of showing up, being present, making a difference, and striving to be better than the day before. Leadership is not a skill that is perfected overnight, nor is it a title that guarantees influence. It is a lifelong commitment to growth, service, and responsibility. The true impact of a leader is not found in their personal achievements, but in the legacy they leave behind through the people they inspire, empower, and develop. Leadership is not about standing above others. It is about lifting them up. It is about recognizing the potential in people and helping them see it in themselves. A leader's greatest responsibility is not to control, but to guide, not to dictate, but to empower. The most effective leaders are those who create an environment where people feel safe to contribute, take risks, and grow into the best version of themselves. They build trust not through words alone, but through actions that consistently demonstrate integrity, fairness, and care. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it is difficult to restore. That is why great leaders prioritize honesty, transparency, and accountability in everything they do. Leadership is also about creating a culture of shared responsibility. No organization or team can thrive if leadership is concentrated in a single person. When leadership is distributed, when people at every level feel ownership over their work and their impact, innovation flourishes and progress accelerates. A leader's job is not to make all the decisions, but to create an environment where the best ideas can surface, be tested, and be implemented. True leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room, but about surrounding oneself with people who bring different perspectives and strengths. A leader's character is tested not in moments of ease, but in times of challenge and uncertainty. The way a leader responds to setbacks, conflicts, and unexpected obstacles determines the resilience of the team. In times of crisis, people do not look for leaders who pretend to have all the answers. They look for leaders who remain steady, who acknowledge the difficulty, and who inspire confidence by focusing on solutions rather than problems. Leadership is not about avoiding failure, it is about learning from it and using those lessons to strengthen the team and the mission. Leaders must also recognize that they set the tone for the culture of their organization. If a leader fosters a culture of fear, where mistakes are punished and ideas are dismissed, creativity and engagement will suffer. But if a leader creates a culture of openness, where people feel safe to challenge ideas, to question processes, and to contribute their perspectives, the entire organization thrives. A strong leader does not demand respect, they earn it by showing respect first. The journey of leadership is not a solitary one. Great leaders surround themselves with people who challenge them, support them, and help them grow. They seek mentors, they listen to feedback, and they never stop learning. No leader, no matter how experienced, has all the answers. The willingness to admit when they are wrong, to seek wisdom from others, and to evolve over time is what separates good leaders from truly exceptional ones. More than anything, leadership is about impact. A leader's legacy is not written in the accomplishments they achieve, but in the lives they touch. It is not measured by the power they hold, but by the difference they make. The most inspiring leaders are those who dedicate themselves to serving others, to leaving things better than they found them, and to ensuring that the next generation of leaders is stronger, wiser, and more capable than they were themselves. Every leader must ask themselves what kind of leader they want to be remembered as. Do they want to be the kind of leader who demands compliance, who seeks control, who prioritizes their own success? Or do they want to be the kind of leader who uplifts others, who creates a lasting culture of trust, and who builds a foundation strong enough to endure long after they are gone? The choice is made every day in the way they lead, in the way they listen, in the way they show up for others. Leadership is not about a single defining moment. It is about the accumulation of everyday choices. It is about the consistency of character, the willingness to grow, and the dedication to something greater than oneself. Those who embrace leadership as a lifelong journey, who remain committed to developing themselves and those around them, will leave behind not just a career of success, but a legacy of true impact.